This is Charlie Parsons for Boxing Social. I'm delighted to be joined here with none other than the man who's come into the sort of YouTube industry and taken it, and he's tearing it right up. Mams Taylor, you're looking very hench there, bro. I must say, how you doing?
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
man.
Yeah, no, I work out. I work out a lot here, and I think it's important, you know. It's these kids have inspired me to try and get back in shape and everything, and I see the transformations, especially KSI.
Mm.
He went from fat neek to fit neek, and just, looks amazing. And it's so good for your health anyway, in general, isn't it? So especially at my age, you want to try and stay in as good a shape as you can.
Look, let me ask you about the whole sort of creating Misfits and revolutionizing it how you've done, because obviously I work in the full-time competitive professional boxing sport, but I'm at an age group where I can still dabble in and enjoy stuff like this. And a lot of my friends are following this side more so than the professional side. How did it all come about, especially working with the Sauerlands, who obviously we've got a close relationship with in the professional side, and sort of making it so it's not necessarily seen as this thing that people perhaps say, look, it hasn't got the right licensing and sanctioning, etc. You've managed to sort of give it a board of its own sort of thing.
Um, Look, I think it was the natural progression that had to be done. There's a demand for this, and also for KSI, and I think I said this recently. Calla and I have known each other for many years, since we were 13, 14 years old, scrapping each other's mates, actually, on the opposite sides, and then we became friends. And so we've had an organic, great friendship for many years. JJ and I, obviously, for me, I think we share a vision. Whatever he does, whatever he wants to be involved in, I'm like, I want you to own your IP. I want you to be the CEO, and he gets that, and he wants that as well. So he's an entrepreneur, and I think we both have an entrepreneurial spirit. But more than that, I think it's because we wanted to create a platform which continues to live on after JJ stops boxing, and gives all these kids opportunities, to get in shape, to settle their differences in the ring, to be platformed and elevated to a higher level. Listen, some of the guys who've been on Misfits a couple of times or even once, their level of recognition has gone up exponentially.
Mm.
Their engagement on socials, that word clout is just disgusting, isn't it? But it is, you get more clouted doing those things. And I think it's really nice to see that. It's nice to see that we're making a difference for these guys. And obviously they're earning some good money out of it, and getting in shape and getting fit, and hopefully no one gets hurt. And that's I think it's mostly a really positive thing overall. And if anyone's going to do it, rather than just let other people put these other organizations, which, let's face it, the history on some of those haven't been really good. So we wanted to fill that gap, and provide a place which is, you're going to get paid, you're not going to have issues. We're going to have all the right things in place to ensure as much safety as possible. It's fighting at the end of the day, but take all the right precautions, and just do things the right way.
Well, we will go into sort of other organizations and bodies on this side of things, because I think that's interesting. I think it's something that hasn't necessarily been brought up as much as it should be. Let me firstly sort of speak about this deal with DAZN. I asked Eddie, and Eddie said, shout out my man KSI, because the numbers on DAZN are incredible. You've now sort of got a fight platform where people are able to dabble, maybe on the side of the YouTube side, because a lot of people on my timeline now are following Misfits, but also following the professionals and vice versa. Is that refreshing? Is that the organic following that this sport needs?
I don't know. I think our intention is always to, of course, if we get boxing purists to check out our shows and they're entertained by our shows, that's a massive win. We love that. But even more, I think it's been said that there's been some fresh breath breathed back into boxing from the youth culture getting involved and becoming interested, that would otherwise not be watching traditional boxing. And because they're watching Misfits, they're like, oh, let me check out the traditional boxing too, because they have their DAZN subscriptions. They're like, you know what, I'm going to check out this other fight as well. And they get excited. Then they get to know the other fighters and get excited. So I think it works both ways, but more so the other way. Obviously, we get a lot more haters. And we're not over here hating on traditional boxing. You know, we just want to supplement it. We're not trying to, we've got our own lane and we're not trying to take over anyone else's. So it's really funny when I see that. It's like you subscribe to HBO, yeah? If you subscribe to HBO, that means you're watching House of Dragons. That's a great show. I like that shit. I'm gonna get caught here because I don't know enough shows on HBO. But let's say there's 5-6 shows every Sunday, and I like to watch 2 of those shows. The 3 that I don't like to watch, I'm just not gonna watch them. I'm not gonna start complaining about them. I'm not gonna be like, oh, this show is shit. Why is this on HBO? Maybe you will if you're really bored. But at the end of the day, I don't get it. DAZN has enough great, fresh content for all boxing enthusiasts, whether it's for, you know, for what we do or for the purist stuff, which is obviously got massive foundation itself. But if we're helping bring more eyeballs to their sport and helping it continue, then why hate on us? It makes no sense. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that.
Do you think the collaboration with the Sauerlands and it being with DAZN, in which, like, for example, I remember Sheffield, I think, was the first Misfit show I did, and it was quite refreshing to turn up to an actual open workout, to an actual press conference, to an actual weigh-in, with the organisation involved, with the same security guards that I'd usually see on a pro bout or a pro event or whatever, in the way that you're not masking the exact thing from the pros, but there are things that you can take from it. For example, the press conference, you're doing it up on the stage, and it's sort of got that same detailing, but you put your own spin on it, rather than some of these other events, which we will touch into, where, you know, they think, you know, you get the names and then it's all going to flow, whereas it does need proper structure involved, doesn't it?
It really does. It needs proper structure involved. It needs you know, the reason that this space has the eyeballs it does is because a lot of it is these kids who are either, it's crossover boxing, which means that you can get athletes, you can get influencers, but let's face it, it started out with the YouTubers, evolved more into some of the TikTokers getting involved, and now we're getting people coming. I mean, my DMs are filled with mostly pro boxers and MMA guys more than anything,
There we
right?
are.
Um, and again, we've got our own thing, so we're not trying to interfere with what else is going on. But it's a cool. It creates a cool dynamic when you see certain boxers, certain influencers that can compete with people who have had boxing as their profession for their whole life and that kind of thing. So it creates an interesting dynamic, and it's open to all who have recognition in an area. So, you know, you've got actors, actresses, TV show people who are on TV shows and whatever it is, as long as they have a following. But what we've got to be careful of is that these guys understand that they have this opportunity because of their platforms. So to abandon their platforms and say, I want to be a boxer now, then we're not the right guys for you.
Yeah.
You know, go work your way, you know, in traditional boxing, because at the end of the day, the reason that you're getting the eyeballs is because of what you've built. And that's what's given you the privilege to fight for the money you're fighting for and to have the eyeballs on you that you've got on you. So to abandon that is really not clever. And I've seen that happen a couple of times, but we strongly discourage that because it doesn't last, you know, and it doesn't do well.
I
When
think that's
someone,
also refreshing that you say that, though, because, you know, you could be encouraging these guys to come and fight on your show, take a payday, not worry about churning out content, but you're not. In the same time of you encouraging them to still do content is, look, if the Misfits boxing side doesn't work out, they've still got a leg to stand on.
yeah, of course. I mean, you know, I think it's always good to remember where you came from and remember your roots and what made you famous in the first place. Look, one thing about JJ that no one can deny is that boy will never forget his YouTube base.
Mm.
You know, no matter how big and how commercially successful he's been in other arenas, he's never abandoned it. You can look on his YouTube, and there's always going to be a new upload every week, every couple of weeks, whatever it is, because he knows that that's his that's his core base that made him who he is, that elevated him to the place he's in. And he's not one of those guys. And I've seen this happen so many times with others who've succeeded beyond the realm of YouTube or their initial platform, which blew them up, and they distance themselves from it. But their careers are short-lived that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't name names, but there's a few examples that come to mind immediately. And that's the cool thing that JJ's clever about. He's not, and it's not just that, he has a real relationship with those guys. Like, you know, and I encourage that for all crossover boxers to remember that. You know, whether you've come from Love Island, or you've come from whether you've come from playing the sport of rugby, you still want to keep your fan base and you know have a relationship with the initial fans who made you. You know.
I totally agree. Look, let's move on to the boxing itself. You've got the first date, boxing and crossover boxing, in January. January the 14th, we come back to London. KSI fights Dylan Danis. We saw the announcement out in Texas. Look, fans are really happy to get this over line. KSI's back out again early in the year, which means that, you know, there won't be any waiting around for fight dates. Looks like you'll be able to get him out another 2 times in the year. How excited are you? And I've got to ask you, I've seen a couple of JJ's tweets. Is he taking this seriously?
Yeah, he's taking it seriously. I think he had a couple of cheat days, and chocolates and chicken and fried chicken and pizzas and things like that. But he needed that. But he's taking it serious. He's back in now, and yeah, it's all go. Listen, at the end of the day, people can say what they want. Dylan Dennis hasn't. I think his coaches, JJ's coaches, said this in an interview I just saw. Dylan Dennis is an undefeated competitor with a fighting spirit. He's an incredible fighter, all-round fighter. As a boxer, there is an element of unknown to him. You know, people. I think reputationally, you know, he's been unfairly kind of called out for not being a great boxer, but we don't really know where his progress has been and everything else. But listen, he's a tough, heavy guy. When I say heavy, like when you're standing next to him, and he knows how to distribute his weight. He's an athlete. A lot of people in the MMA community are picking him to win. Obviously, we think differently. And yeah, really looking forward to the fight. And the promo and the build up has already been really fun. So, you know, I
Well,
think it's going to be a fun fight.
we've had 3 fights announced on the card. Tom Zanetti, who I've known for a couple of years now, we went to see him at a Showstar bout up in Manchester. Was it Showstar? One of those organisations, and it fell through. He was never given the fight, but he always told me he was a fighter and how itching he was to fight. Obviously, what happened in Sheffield. I know how eager he was then, but the refreshing side, once again, I reiterate, in dealing with you, is the fact that he gets himself another bout. In fact, he goes on, you know, the next available card in the UK. He fights Slim. We know just how good Slim is in this world of crossover. Another great fight.
I think it is a great fight, and people. It's funny because a lot of people don't know how good he is. He's had 7, 8 years of combat experience as a kickboxer, and listen, I think people will be pleasantly surprised. I think this is going to be. And I was telling Slim, I said, look, this is probably your toughest challenge yet. So you've really got to step up your levels in camp and everything else, and for Tom as well. I think there is an unknown sort of factor to it. There's not much Slim can study, and he's got that advantage. So, you know, definitely a banger of a fight. Either way, I think it's going to be fireworks because both of those boys are very aggressive, you know.
Salt Pappy returns, who's someone who I've heard about his amateur experience, saw him in the ring, thought, oh my God, this guy can fight. Ryan Taylor, as well, we know how tough he is and how good he is in the build-up of a fight, returns against Swarmz, I believe, in one that sort of took us by surprise, but we knew Swarmz wanted to get back in there. Maybe a real opportunity to see if he has the camp. He can do it.
Yeah, I think they're comparable on their levels. I think Swarmz has been training hard. He's really he wants to redeem himself. Ryan had a loss against Slim, and it was I think he earned the respect of many. Um, and they're both tough boys, you know. And I think again the promo lead up to it's going to be good. Um, and it's I don't know. It's I've seen some footage of Swarmz, and I was like, okay, all right, he's definitely shown a lot of improvement. You're getting a very different Swarmz, and then Ryan's just a tough boy, isn't he? He's very tough. I'm I don't know. It's a tough. It's one of those 50-50 fights again. I know people are saying, "Oh, it's going to be easy, an easy day for Ryan," but I don't predict that that's going to be the case. I think it'll be tougher fight than a lot of people think.
Look, Mams, I know you're a busy man, so I'll rattle through the rest of the questions. I just want to touch on the An Eson Gib sort of back and forth on Twitter. He put out a little tweet saying it was the lowest fight offer in 3 years, to do better, and that he'll expose the fighters that you protect. You get back. I offered you 250K to fight Temper. More of you fight Slim on a main event. Offered a lot more for JJ since we're talking about exposing. He then replied again, you just lied about getting me an offer for JJ, and it's still the lowest offer in 3 years. You're trying to throw me under the bus for the backlash of your poor matchmaking. What number are we at now? 11 mismatch fights this year. Just your response to this.
I did respond to it.
What, since his other one?
Yeah,
Oh, well, I'm going to need you to do it on here then.
you can check out the Twitter and see. I mean, listen, I'll tell you this. It's very funny because what happened is you had a couple of organizations. Again, I'm not here to throw people under the bus. I think we're above that. We're beyond that at this point. Um, but what happened is some organizations came in, said, "Hey guys, give you a couple of $1 million, give you 5 million, give you 2 million, give you 800 grand." Just offering crazy money to everyone to fight just because they've had a few million followers on TikTok or millions of subscribers, whatever it is, but completely over overpaying, but not actually paying. So over promising and under delivering, not and ended up not paying a lot of those fighters, and some of them but getting paid pennies on the dollar, literally. So then there was another organization who did overpay a bunch of them, and they're not around anymore because of that. So this is the thing. We want to pay fairly. We pay very fairly. If you don't bring eyeballs to the pay-per-views, if you don't bring butts into seats, how the hell can we justify paying you, overpaying? You know, there is a premium because at the end of the day, people want to see these fights. They want to see good fights. I try my best with what's available to me. It's not always easy. Actually, matchmaking in a shallow but growing pool is bloody near impossible. And listen, the criticism from Gib about the mismatches, it's so funny because you've got pros fighting journeymen. Okay, is that not mismatching? If a pro is fighting to pad their record, okay, to become 7-0, 8-0, is that not mismatches? They don't immediately fight. They don't immediately fight the perfect competition against themselves. All boxers that I know, from Floyd, Mike Tyson, um, Errol Spence, you name it, all of these guys I have a lot of respect for. Listen, Vidal, incredible boxer, amazing prospect. The fights he's had up till now are not great competition for him, right? He's displayed his skills and is a star, and he's got a big future in the sport of boxing. It's the same thing, and I'm saying Vidal not because I'm picking him out particularly, just Tommy Fury, all these guys who our audience are familiar with. I'm giving them examples. So if you look at boxing itself, there's a lot more mismatches in the sport of boxing than there is in our shallow pool. But it's not done with intent. I'm not trying to pad people's records and allow them to do this and that. It's just impossible to make some of the fights that the fans want to see in that moment. It takes time. Some fighters will say, look, categorically, I want to have 2 or 3 warm-up fights before I have some real competition. And you want to give them, you want to honor what they want to some degree, but also you don't want them to escape the real fights. So at some point I say, look, this is the fight, take it or leave it. And I have to get tough about it. But again, I want to make it clear, my job is to make the fighters happy as much as I possibly can, because we're very pro fighters. JJ and I started out with that in mind, in particular, to provide a safe and fair platform. We want to make fans happy. Super important, okay, to make the fans happy. Now, that's really hard, because if you match 2 people very evenly, they'll be like, oh, these fights are boring. If someone's, if you don't match them evenly, someone gets knocked out, oh, it's mismatch. Like, it's very hard, and they're very vocal. But you want to create a balance and create an entertaining show for them. And then I've got partners to keep happy as well, and they're businessmen. JJ and I are more like, all right, legacy, but we have businessmen as partners who care about this as a business. And if our business doesn't do well, then there is no Misfits. So it's like, I don't think the casual person tweeting about this stuff and criticizing actually thinks about or knows all the moving parts that there are. So it's like,
go into it, the matchmaking, everything.
Come and matchmake. I'm going to put a competition out. Come and matchmake and see if it's possible to. Like, people are like, hey, put this guy against that guy. Do you think I haven't thought of that match? Like, of course, we've sat down, we've thought about it, we've tried to make it happen. For one reason or another, it's not possible. And I'm sure it's similar in the sport of boxing as well. I know
I was just about to say that, it comes down, it's a numbers game. We look at weights, we look at all of these things. These are issues that it may not, people may go, oh, you know what, these are 2 creators with big followings, but it's not always that simple at the end of the day.
It's not. And you want to try and make sure that the levels, and listen, sometimes you'll have someone come to me and say, I want to have a fight with this guy. And they'll bug me for it all the time. And I'll be like, yeah, but you're not as experienced as them. They're like, no, I am. I've been training my ass off. Show me footage. They're sparring. It looks good. And then you put them in the ring and they might not do as well as they anticipated. So, like, there's a lot of stuff that's not accounted for. I really, really want to document some of the process to educate the fans on how some of this happens. So before they make these judgments and criticisms, they're like, and listen, I'm very open to constructive criticism. And I think we need that, and we have to be open in order to grow. But at the same time, there's a lot of unwarranted stuff out there because of people's ignorance to this. That's all.
Look, let me ask you quickly about Anthony Taylor. I think I've seen that he signed with Happy Punch. I spoke to Calla, right? Because me and Calla always go back and forth, and I've always asked him, I said, I know you love this, Calla, but, when you see Anthony Taylor outside a venue throwing right hands to people, are you not going grey a little bit? Is it not stressing you out? He said, no, I love it. And that's the drama that he enjoys. I've got to ask you, on the side of Anthony Taylor, someone that we've dealt with as a company and we've done bits with, and we see the positive side, but there is a side in which you can't be going outside a venue and just chinning people.
No. He's been, that has been addressed. And privately, I'm not going to disclose everything, but it's been addressed, and certainly he's not being rewarded for that. And actually, if there's any fists thrown outside of a ring with any of our fighters, we're really not interested, because that's not what we're looking for. Look, a scuffle here and there, words exchanged,
yeah,
cool. Create the buzz, push each other, go as far as that if we need to. But at the end of the day, I'm not in the business of letting people get hurt and not get, they're fighting in the ring for a paycheck, so they have to remember that. And I think that listen, I've had some really, really long chats with Anthony about this, and I'm confident that he's going to be on better behavior when it comes to that. And I don't advocate that stuff at all. I think it's bad reputationally. And I think at the end of the day, if someone gets really hurt, that's not, I don't want that on my conscience, and I don't want that to happen,
Look, just a few more. Jake Paul, obviously I know KSI is gunning for that fight, whether it be, a couple more to be ready, because we know Obviously KSI took his little break and did his music, and Jake's been doing this consistently for a while now. But JJ maintains he wants this fight. You know, conversations with MVP, are they amicable, and is it looking like something that can be done for 2023?
2023, that's the goal, yeah. So I'm very confident that that both sides will do whatever it takes to make that fight happen. Fans have been wanting it for long enough. I think that ends a tremendous debate. You know, and it puts it to rest once and for all. It's something that just needs to happen at this point, you know.
Obviously, Jake had his beef with Tommy, which we saw exemplified on the Global Titans card. I interviewed John Fury backstage, and that was fun, as it always is with Big John. Look, I got to ask regarding the Global Titans thing, because obviously we know Tommy's contracted to George Warren, Frank Warren, and Queensbury. However, Global Titans put out a message saying, you know, we'd received no offer. Jake Paul said, I will not be dealing with you, and sort of blasted the last event a little bit. I know you won't want to come on here and slag off different promotional outlets doing this sort of thing, but just on the side of dealing with the guys at Global Titans, and Jake Paul's point in not wanting to deal with them if anything happens with the Tommy fight, and then everything that happened with Paul Bamba. Just your thoughts on that.
I think I encourage other organizations to do what they're doing, and allow people a platform to shine and everything else. But it takes more than money to do these shows right. It's not, you can't just throw a bunch of money at something and expect it to do well. And you know, I think people who know what numbers that show did, it, you know, it is what it is, and I think there's room for improvement for them, but they can't take an arrogant approach to it, and that would be my advice for that. You know, listen, I may be sometimes I come across arrogantly, and I know that, and it's sometimes I just get a kick out of it, and I'm a troll. I'm the first person to admit I can be a troll sometimes, but behind the scenes, I promise you, I'm very open to learning, and that's the reason that we've chosen the partners that we have. And if there's mistakes along the way, we sit down and we break down, hey, we could have done this better, we could have done A, B, and C better, and we take it on, and that's the whole point. I think when you're not open to learning and growing, then you know, that's a problem, you know. And there seems to be an air of arrogance amongst some of these other promotions where they're not taking things on board properly. And I think treating fighters and fans correctly is very, very important in general. Listen, doesn't mean that they're always going to be grateful. It does not mean that. Let me reiterate, I've seen it, but it doesn't matter. That's their problem. As long as I know that we're taking care of our fans as best as we can and our fighters as best as we can, then, you know, I can sleep well at night.
Look, Mams, thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I do this for the boxing promoters regularly, so it's nice to bring you in on that scale as well. Just a final message to the people watching.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Top
That's
man.
it.
We see you
All
in
right. Thanks for
January.
having me.
Thank you,
Cheers.
bro. Just two things off camera, if that's all.